Well, hi, I'm Julian Kosloff and I'm here with Stephanie Bullock from Kosloff Architecture. We're going to present the Gatwick Private Hotel, which is the conversion of two empty ground floor shells into a single family home for our family of five.
So the site is the ground floor of the former Gatwick Hotel, which is located in the heart of St Kilda, as shown here. And following a much longer history of Indigenous occupation on the site, the much more recent history of St Kilda and the Gatwick has been one of multiple cycles of gentrification and densification and then decline and then repeating.
So the Gatwick was constructed in the interwar period, opening originally as a luxury residential hotel in about 1937, and eventually purchased by the Carboni family in the 70s, who ran it as a rooming house until about 4 years ago, when it was sold to Channel 9 and used for season 14 of the renovation show The Block. This saw the renovation of the top 3 floors of the building and addition of another level, but excluded the ground floor, which is what we purchased in 2019.
So the building's constructed in what could be called a restrained Spanish mission style, and its fortunes have really mirrored the changing socioeconomic circumstances in St Kilda over time. It has a heritage listing, but that only applies to the exterior, and unfortunately much of the intact interior fabric was lost during the block. So there was no requirement for us to obtain a heritage permit for the internal works, but we chose to voluntarily, I guess, engage with the history and heritage of the building and use it as the key design driver for the project, really to imagine the interiors forming a dialogue with the history of the building and the remnants of the original that still remained.
So these photos show the condition of the shells when we received them, with a significant amount of interior fabric removed and new opening structure and infrastructure for the floors above inserted in an entirely unsympathetic manner. What little interior fabric remained was largely detached from its original location.
Despite this, we felt there was still enough of the original fabric left to use as a starting point for this dialogue, and that there was a great opportunity to retain a sense of the building's complex history in the interiors.
So in the final days of the Gatwick prior to becoming the block, a number of events were held, during which residents left heartfelt notes on some of the interior walls.
So this is a plan of the original ground floor of the hotel as it was when it first opened, and a number of these rooms were subsequently subdivided to form additional accommodation while it was a rooming house. And you can see here the black shows, I guess, what we inherited when we took possession. So you can see from this that the extent of the walls that were removed prior to us starting.
And this is the plan as it stands now, which includes 2 new entries to the main apartment, which are shown in pink, one from each foyer, both located behind heritage listed panels. There are 4 bedrooms located on the south side and all sharing access to a common deck, with living spaces and separate self-contained studio and event space on the north, and a central service core occupying what was originally the central hallway.
We're also really interested in how the future narrative of the site might evolve, and there's a long-term master plan we developed, which would see the separation of what's currently the master bedroom into another self-contained studio, so effectively continuing that cycle of densification that we mentioned before.
So prior to commencing, we undertook a really detailed photographic survey of the internal existing building fabric, I guess to identify how the remnants of this existing interior materiality could be sympathetically retained and reinterpreted.
So wherever we could, existing elements such as detailed plaster mouldings were retained and preserved rather than being restored, and any exposed brickwork that indicated where walls had been removed, they were also retained to show where these were previously located.
And we revisited these studies once construction commenced. We were living up the road, so it was very easy. And I guess this allowed us to refine and adjust our approach as that progressed and as we discovered more about the spaces.
We worked closely with paint specialist Mock Turtle, who assisted with cleaning back the existing paint finishes and also in developing sort of complementary yet clearly different paint treatments for new surfaces.
So Mock Turtle actually worked on the refurbishment of the Esplanade Hotel, and they noted that the existing pink was almost an exact match to what they called the Espy pink. However, we caught up with Rose Navette, the previous owners of the boarding, and they told us that this colour was essentially what you get when you mix a whole lot of leftover paints together, which is what they did when they needed to paint the interior. Regardless, the pink's been retained, and a large number of the walls throughout, the tiling's also been retained.
So there's traces of that existing building fabric, including those mouldings and tiling and paint finishes in almost every room, along with new elements which are, I guess, a reinterpretation of those retained materials, but it's still clearly different. And you can see in these images how you can see that residual fabric in almost every space and also in views through to adjacent spaces.
So wherever possible, the original finishes have been preserved. And in some areas, peeling paint's been taken back through various layers to reveal older patinas or older colours.
And having these remnants visible in almost every space is central to the experience of living here while creating a new narrative with new possibilities.
This shows the overlay of the original plan in pink, with the finer grain of the smaller original rooms still legible throughout. Because what little original fabric remained was largely detached from its original location. Any existing materials, including floorboards and skirting boards, were carefully removed and collected for reinstatement, primarily in the studio or event space.
So new materials and interventions drew on detailed studies that we did of these remnants, and these were reinterpreted into contemporary forms, such as the skirting detail shown on the left, which is the original, and on the right, a contemporary version of that.
And the original mouldings, marble, aged brass, and the Gatwick green, which was still in place at the front door entry from Fitzroy Street, was also used as a starting point for these new interventions.
And then this was used to create a clearly different but complementary palette for these new insertions, in particular sort of joinery and also everything right down to the sort of tapware and the door handles. And we also drew on a wide range of other contextual and quite personal to us cues. So, for example, the kitchen bench is an exact sectional measure of the bar at Cafe D'Estasio, which is now sadly closed. We're very glad we did that because we've got, I guess, a small part of that still in the apartment.
So I guess we view our current home in the Gatwick as just one part of a long and ongoing narrative that contains not only the carefully preserved messages from former inhabitants, but also relics from our family encased in the walls during construction. The hope is that these will be revealed over time, either to our future selves or our kids, or others when it enters a new stage of its history. Although, thank you. We're pretty keen to open that really good bottle of Shiraz that's maturing the walls at the moment.
So in summary, we see this project as just another chapter in its complex history, encompassing its built form evolution from its start as a luxury private hotel, then to a boarding house, and now to a private residence and studio and event space.
And I suppose its current manifestation on the ground floor as our home represents only its current iteration, if you like, and we're hopeful that the traces of the past that it contains will allow for it to continually evolve well into the future, into new, public and private forms of occupation.
Thank you.
Thanks.